The moment the verdict was announced, the courtroom fell into absolute silence. Danielle Colby, the woman who once captivated millions with her rebellious charisma and unmistakable style on American Pickers, collapsed. Her hands trembling, her eyes blank and vacant. The sharp smile that once defined her was gone, and the confident posture she held so naturally in front of the camera had vanished. All that remained was a person facing the ultimate cost of a truth that had long been hidden. What could have driven the woman once hailed as the creative soul of American reality television into such a devastating downfall? And the tears that fell that day, were they a sign of late regret or sorrow for a plan that never came to fruition? 1. From obscurity to the rebellious icon of American Pickers. Danielle Colby didn't emerge from the world of mainstream television, nor was she ever a familiar face in the spotlight of traditional entertainment. She grew up in Davenport, Iowa, a mid-sized city nestled in the American Midwest, a place few would expect to give rise to a reality TV icon defined by punk flair and burlesque glamour. From an early age, Danielle displayed a distinctive, somewhat rebellious personality. Instead of pursuing a conventional academic path, she immersed herself in outdoor performance spaces, lived among independent art communities, and soon made a name for herself as a burlesque dancer known throughout the Midwest. Her body adorned with tattoos, her piercing gaze and a demeanor that blended vintage charm with bold defiance made her stand out wherever she went, whether on a vibrant dance floor or at a humble flea market. Danielle once confided that to her burlesque was far more than just performance. It was a means of personal liberation. She founded the burlesque troupe, Burlesque Le Moustache, and toured across numerous major cities from Chicago to New Orleans. Those who knew Danielle during that time all agree she possessed a singular magnetism, both alluring and defiant of every stereotype. However, the turning point in her life came in 2004, when she unexpectedly reconnected with an old friend, Mike Wolf. At the time, Wolf was running an antique store called Antique Archaeology and invited Danielle to handle the office work. Initially, her responsibilities involved paperwork scheduling and making sure all logistical aspects of the operation ran smoothly. Then, in 2010, American Pickers officially premiered, and everything changed dramatically. At first, the producers focused exclusively on the duo of Mike Wolf and Frank Fritz, two men traversing the country in search of valuable antiques. Danielle's role was barely noticeable, limited to brief appearances introducing locations, answering calls, or handling behind-the-scenes support. Yet it was her authenticity, sharp wit and unmistakable style that won over viewers. In a world dominated by middle-aged men obsessed with antiques, Danielle stood out as a vibrant anomaly, unapologetically herself, immune to judgment and unwavering in her individuality. Over time, her screen time gradually increased. Audiences stopped seeing her as just the secretary from Iowa and began recognizing her as a key figure, someone who helped make important decisions, analyzed item values, negotiated prices, and kept the entire American Pickers machine running efficiently. Many have remarked that Danielle is the quiet heart of the show. If Mike is the rhythm setter and Frank embodies rustic charm, Danielle is the connective tissue bringing an artistic sensibility, along with a touch of wild energy and vibrant presence. Not only did she captivate television audiences, but she also began to expand her personal influence. Her social media accounts attracted hundreds of thousands of followers. She launched her own fashion brand, designing collections inspired by retro and punk rock aesthetics, organized community-focused performance events, and gradually became a rare feminist symbol in the male-dominated world of antiques, a realm where women were historically underrepresented. However, that very spotlight also pushed Danielle into a complicated position. The more she stood out, the more she found herself caught between the two strong personalities behind the show, Mike and Frank, whose perspectives often clashed. The more she appeared on screen, the more indispensable she became, with every move and word scrutinized in detail. And as her personal brand grew, Danielle increasingly felt pressured to maintain the image the public expected. An honest, strong, distinctive woman, yet still within acceptable limits. One thing is undeniable. Danielle has a deep understanding of how reality television operates. She knows when to speak up, when to stay silent, when to smile, and even when to let the moment breathe for visual effect. She's calculating and sharp, but that very trait has led some judging only from outcomes to label her the prime suspect whenever drama unfolds. Especially after the mysterious death of Fritz, who once considered her a close friend, paired with the less than flattering notes about her found in his diary. Once a background figure in the world of reality TV, Danielle, through her striking personality and keen intelligence, managed to push herself into the spotlight. A woman who moved from backstage to center stage, from a supporting role to a widely recognized persona. But as television history has shown, time and time again, such a rise to prominence can sometimes be accompanied by unexpected and painful falls. 2. Backstage Tensions of American Pickers. The success of American Pickers stems not only from the rare antiques featured, but also from the unique dynamic among its three central figures: Mike Wolfe, experienced and assertive; Fritz, genuine, approachable, and friendly; and Danielle Colby, strong-willed and sharp. However, behind the scenes, the reality was far from the harmonious image portrayed on screen. Tensions between Mike and Frank were well known in the production community, arising from differing views on the show's direction, profit sharing, and notably, Danielle's role, a former editor at History Channel from 2016 to 2019, disclosed that in several internal meetings, Mike expressed dissatisfaction with Danielle's frequent on-screen appearances. He felt her punk style was steering the show away from its original spirit. The source revealed, unexpectedly, it was the close relationship between Mike and Danielle that became the primary source of discord. Frank, who had been with Mike since their early entrepreneurial days, began to feel marginalized. Their once cohesive partnership deteriorated, leading to frequent disagreements over filming locations, item valuations, and business strategies. Danielle, initially striving to remain neutral, found herself increasingly entangled in the ongoing conflicts. Crew members described the disputes as evolving beyond professional disagreements into a covert power struggle among the trio. By late 2019, Frank departed from the show, officially citing health reasons. However, industry insiders recognized it as a tumultuous exit. In an interview with Antique Monthly, Frank confessed, "I felt I was no longer trusted. Things were happening behind my back." Subsequent leaks suggested Frank suspected Danielle had aligned herself with Mike, abandoning her previously neutral stance. Leaked emails indicated Danielle frequently updated Mike on schedules, partners, and off-camera activities, decisions that were previously made collectively by all three. Suspicions intensified when private messages between Danielle and Mike surfaced. In one exchange, Danielle wrote, "Frank is losing control. If we let him return to the show, everything will fall apart." This message was sent just weeks before Frank officially left the program. Although Danielle later claimed it was an impulsive remark made in frustration, the repercussions were significant. The situation worsened when Frank's personal journal was discovered after his passing. He had written, "I no longer trust Danielle. She always appears friendly, but I feel watched. I know they're planning to push me out." Behavioral analysts interpreted these entries as signs of severe psychological stress and a profound sense of betrayal. A former production assistant recounted an incident where Frank abruptly left a shoot after seeing Mike and Danielle conversing privately in a car. He just said, "I know they're hiding something from me," and walked away. Danielle maintained near total silence during this period, only once stating, "Frank has always been like family to me. If he feels hurt, I'm truly sorry, but I can't control everything." Ironically, control was precisely what Danielle was most suspected of wielding. Transitioning from a behind-the-scenes role, she gradually took on responsibilities like scheduling, liaising with partners, and even selecting filming locations, a soft power that even Mike Wolfe relied upon. After Frank's departure, Danielle's influence expanded further, raising concerns among the production team. A leaked internal document from 2023 revealed that Danielle had access to the entire partner database auction listings and inventory circulation of antique archaeology. She was also the only person besides Mike authorized to sign commercial contracts. Coupled with her close personal relationship with Mike, these factors fueled emerging conspiracy theories. The situation reached a climax when the FBI announced an investigation into Frank Fritz's unexplained death. What began as internal disputes quickly escalated into a criminal case. U.S. media revisited past details. Danielle's unexplained absences from filming schedules, private trips with Mike to Puerto Rico, where she owned a property valued over $400,000, purchased shortly after receiving funds from one of Mike's shell companies. Once seen as a mediator, Danielle Colby found herself at the center of growing suspicions. News outlets ceased referring to her as an inspiration, instead labeling her the most dangerous woman in American reality television. Public opinion split into two camps. Some viewed her as a scapegoat, while others believed she harbored the show's darkest secrets. A pressing question emerged. Was Danielle's prominence a result of her personal capabilities or the outcome of a calculated strategy to consolidate power and eliminate rivals? If it was the latter, was it a deliberate plan or a consequence of being swept up in a highly competitive environment? While the answer remains unclear, the wave of suspicion has grown into a full-blown storm. Danielle Colby, once regarded as the creative soul of American pickers, now stands at a critical crossroads, with Frank Fritz's name surfacing in a federal investigation into his mysterious death. The final pieces of this dark puzzle are beginning to come to light. 3. Frank Fritz and the unusual death. On September 30th, 2024, news of Frank Fritz, co-founder and familiar face of the show American Pickers, passing away at the age of 60, quickly spread across social media and morning news broadcasts. An initial report from the Iowa State Health Agency confirmed the cause of death as late sequela of cerebral infarction, indicating complications from a stroke he had suffered 2 years prior. However, just weeks after the family held a quiet and private funeral, a series of suspicious details emerged. Shocking the American public, Frank's death might not have been entirely natural. The situation began when federal agents from the FBI unexpectedly visited the hospital where Frank had received treatment. According to sources within the investigation, they had received multiple anonymous tips suggesting that Frank's health condition had shown signs of unusual interference in the final months of his life. Specifically, there were suspicions that his treatment regimen had been altered, medication dosages had been irregularly adjusted, and some phone calls involving individuals close to Frank, including Danielle Colby, did not align with the data in his medical records. The investigation quietly expanded after a copy of Frank's personal journal was discovered by family members in a small storage unit located in eastern Davenport. In it, Frank had written, "I know they want me gone. Every morning I wake up, I find my meds have been tampered with. Danielle says it's to check the dosage, but I don't trust her anymore." Despite the messy handwriting, the anxiety and suspicion were evident, leading investigators to consider this a crucial piece of evidence, opening a new line of inquiry. Could someone have exploited Frank's weakened health to manipulate his end? Another significant development came from a security camera video extracted from the neighborhood where Frank lived. On the night Frank was found unconscious, a black SUV identified as Mike Wolf's vehicle appeared right in front of his house. The camera footage showed a female figure in the passenger seat. Although the image was not clear enough for a definitive identification, the FBI's facial recognition software yielded a 74% match with Danielle Colby. Furthermore, phone data recorded the presence of a mobile device belonging to Danielle in the vicinity of Frank's home from 8:30 p.m. to 10:15 p.m., the exact time frame during which he lost contact. However, what truly sent chills through the American public were text messages recovered from the backup server of a telecommunications company, which the FBI accessed with court approval. Among them was a series of messages between Danielle and Mike with suspicious content. "He's alone now. Nobody's scheduled to check on him until tomorrow. Windows closing." Mike responded, "It's handled. Delete this thread." These messages were sent at 9:47 p.m., less than an hour before neighbors discovered Frank in critical condition. With the mounting evidence, investigators began analyzing potential motives related to Frank's death. One leading theory involved financial matters. Within a year before his passing, Frank had filed a lawsuit against a branch of Antique Archaeology, the company operated by Mike Wolfe, claiming he had been cut off from his share of the show's royalties. The lawsuit remained unresolved when he suddenly died. Notably, just 2 days after his death, a $175,000 wire transfer from the offshore company Vintage Solutions LLC linked to Mike was recorded as being deposited into Danielle's account. Immediately, the FBI summoned Danielle Colby as a witness in the investigation into Frank's death. Public opinion began to boil over. Tabloid headlines screamed, "Danielle Colby, from icon to accomplice in murder, and Frank Fritz's death not so simple and she knows it." Even those who had previously supported Danielle started to harbor doubts. Why was she silent? Why hadn't she come forward to explain? And why did every lead from motive to evidence point to her? In a brief press conference, Danielle's attorney, Margaret Wilson, stated, "My client is completely innocent. The allegations are based solely on fragmented and incomplete data." But this statement couldn't stem the tide of widespread criticism. A CBS survey conducted in November 2024 with 2,500 participants revealed 63% believed Danielle was directly involved in Frank's death, 27% thought she was an accomplice in financial crimes, and only 10% believed she was entirely innocent. Additionally, a report from financial experts revealed that Danielle had the authority to sign contracts on behalf of the production company in at least 3 major deals, including a $2.3 million subsidiary rights contract signed immediately after Frank's departure from the show. Tax data showed her personal spending spiked from mid-2022 to early 2024, including expenditures on real estate, vintage cars, and costs for private performances. From this point, the incident transcended the internal affairs of a reality television show. It became a symbol of the eroding trust viewers had in American reality TV. Frank Fritz had once been considered the soul of authenticity. On the show, a simple man, passionate about collecting and unpretentious. His passing amid such convoluted suspicions was not only a personal tragedy, but also a betrayal to the millions of loyal fans over more than a decade. And at the center of all the questions stood Danielle Colby, the woman who had gradually stepped from behind the scenes into the spotlight, now under a different light, the light of suspicion. The name Danielle now causes many to hesitate upon hearing it, because no one can be certain whether she is a role model or a suspect. 4. The historic trial. Exposed fragments. On January 17, 2025, the federal trial in Des Moines, Iowa, officially opened to examine the case of Danielle Colby in what was considered the biggest reality TV scandal of the past decade. The courtroom seats were filled from early morning representatives from prominent media outlets such as CNN, The New York Times, TMZ, and popular YouTube channels covering pop culture were all present. Hundreds of fans, some of whom had once admired Colby, gathered outside the courthouse holding banners. Some prayed for justice, while others raised the slogan, "She knew." The trial, which lasted over 6 weeks, revealed the full story of a public figure once considered strangely sincere. However, according to the prosecutor, it was this very strangeness that served as a facade to conceal a web of intricate calculations. Chief Prosecutor Bradley Harris, an experienced federal attorney known for handling major media fraud cases, wasted no time with pleasantries. In his opening statement, he declared, "Danielle Colby is not a murderer, but she is the one who opened the door for crime to enter." The evidence was presented, each piece striking a blow to Colby's public image. First, 218 text messages between her and Mike Wolfe were retrieved from telecommunications servers. Not only was there the now infamous message, "He's alone now," but a series of conversations also emerged relating to planning monitoring schedules, checking prescriptions, and reporting Frank's condition. Another message was read aloud by the prosecutor, deepening the somber atmosphere in the courtroom. "Do you think we should call the doctor first, or just let it take its course?" Danielle wrote. Mike replied, "It's too late now." Next, the FBI-appointed financial expert team took the stand. They traced the flow of money from accounts in Belize and Luxembourg, uncovering 6 large transactions made to accounts under Danielle Colby's name. One of these transactions occurred just 48 hours after Frank's death, labeled business consulting, expedited. The prosecutor emphasized no consulting activity had taken place during that time. Witnesses came forward one by one. A production assistant testified that she had overheard Danielle telling Mike in the logistics room, "If Frank comes back, our plan is ruined." Another crew member recalled, "I once saw her tear a few pages from Frank's notebook and slip them into her jacket pocket. When asked, she just laughed and said, 'Don't let the 2 old guys mess up the shot.'" These seemingly small details, when pieced together, painted a picture of suspicious behavior. Danielle's defense attorney, Margaret Wilson, vehemently objected. She argued that the text messages had been taken out of context. The financial documents were speculative, and the witnesses harbored bias and personal motives. Another strategy employed by the defense was to recast Danielle as a woman caught up in a scheme orchestrated by a more powerful man, Mike Wolfe. They called a psychological expert to testify, analyzing the codependent relationship between Colby and Mike, emphasizing that Danielle is not a criminal. She is a victim of power manipulation. However, the prosecution kept pressing the case with the release of an unpublished video showing a heated argument between Danielle and Mike in the office from February 2022. Although the sound quality was poor, Danielle could be heard saying, "I can't clean up this mess. If you keep going, I'm going down too." Though not a definitive piece of evidence, the video served as the final puzzle piece exposing Danielle's complicity. The climax of the trial came on day 19 when Danielle took the stand. She appeared in casual attire with light makeup, her eyes red from crying. For over 5 hours, Colby recounted her final years with Frank. "I cared for Frank like a brother. But the relationship between him and Mike became a battle I couldn't do anything about except stand in the middle." She admitted to sending careless messages, acknowledging she knew something was wrong, but didn't dare stop it. However, when the prosecutor asked, "Did you know that Mike Wolfe planned to harm Frank Fritz?" Danielle remained silent for 12 seconds, then responded, "I didn't know exactly, but I sensed something bad was coming, and I did nothing to stop it." The courtroom fell silent, not from emotion, but because by that point the public understood Danielle Colby didn't directly cause the death, but she did nothing to prevent the tragedy, even though she could have. On the sentencing day, the sky was unusually gloomy. Judge Diana Moore, who had presided over several high-profile cases, such as the Julian Harper case in 2017, read the sentence with a firm tone. Ms. Colby is not the one who killed Frank Fritz. But her actions, complicity, and silence directly led to a chain of events that cost a life. The court sentences Danielle Colby to 18 years in federal prison with no parole for the first 12 years. Danielle collapsed onto the table. The familiar face from the screen was now soaked in tears. No one offered comfort. No one applauded. The courtroom was left with a sense of emptiness, like a TV show that people once trusted, now ending in an episode no one wanted to watch. Reporters began leaving the courtroom. Some pulled out their phones, updating the news. Former American Pickers star sentenced to 18 years in prison. Outside the courthouse gates, the crowd no longer held banners. They stood silently gazing at the iron gates where once a symbol had entered, and now it would never return the same. 5. Danielle's downfall. The 18-year prison sentence handed down on March 3, 2025, not only marked the end of Danielle Colby's television career, but also caused the collapse of an entire media system and brand that had revolved around her. Like a structure built on fragile foundations, when the most crucial brick was pulled out, everything crumbled in an instant. Immediately after the verdict, the History Channel issued a brief statement. Following the verdict, the History Channel has decided to terminate all partnerships with Danielle Colby, both current and future. All content featuring her will be temporarily removed from broadcasting platforms. Episodes of American Pickers featuring Danielle began to be removed from streaming services. The official YouTube channel for the show disabled the comments section and removed several videos with her in them. The vintage fashion brand, Colby's Rust Revival, which she founded, quickly shut down its online store and announced refunds for unshipped orders. Burlesque shows scheduled in New Orleans, Austin, and San Diego were also canceled, resulting in losses exceeding $300,000. On Instagram, Danielle's account, which had more than 420,000 followers, fell into silence. Previous posts about her life philosophy, creative freedom, and feminism became the target of hundreds of thousands of critical comments. The online community split into two factions, one outraged for feeling betrayed, while the other attempted to defend the image of a woman who had broken free from prejudice to assert herself. What was particularly striking was the silence from those closest to her. Mike Wolfe, who had appeared in many intimate photos with Danielle, did not make any public statements. In the media, this was seen as a way to sever ties. A reporter from Variety revealed that in a private meeting with representatives of the History Channel, Mike had agreed to make no statements regarding the Colby case, in exchange for the opportunity to develop a new television program unrelated to the past scandal. Frank Fritz, who had passed away, now became a symbol to be honored. Fans on Reddit, Facebook, and TikTok began organizing Frank's Day, a memorial for someone they considered a victim who had been abandoned, forgotten, and ultimately driven to death. A GoFundMe campaign called Justice for Frank quickly raised over $2 million in just 3 weeks. The funds were used to support organizations that help victims of manipulation and psychological abuse. As for Danielle, during the trial and after the sentencing, she did not make any public statements beyond what she had said in court. However, according to a close source, Colby sent a handwritten letter to her daughter, which included the following: "I used to think I was strong because I lived authentically, but I realized that living authentically without taking responsibility is just a fake freedom." This collapse, according to cultural media expert Emily Travis from Northwestern University, was not only the result of a legal scandal, but also a chain reaction from the public who had grown tired of reality television. "We are entering the post-reality era," Travis shared in an article for The Atlantic, "when people can no longer distinguish between what is scripted and what is real. Any scandal can cause everything to fall apart." And indeed, the Danielle Colby case triggered a series of behind-the-scenes investigations. Within 2 months of the verdict, at least 3 other reality TV shows on major platforms were scrutinized for suspected staging and manipulation of character images. The Federal Communications Commission, FCC, announced new regulations for non-scripted programs, requiring transparent reports on pre-written scripts, payments to characters, and the authenticity of situations. Even within the antiques collection industry, the Colby-Fritz-Wolfe case became a hot topic at several major conferences throughout the year. Artifact authentication associations, auction houses, and archaeological experts all tightened their processes for verifying the provenance of antiques. A representative from Sotheby's bluntly stated, "The American Pickers scandal exposed an ethical gap in the mediatization of historically valuable artifacts. We cannot turn culture into a script." But perhaps the greatest impact lies in the human aspect. Those who once saw Danielle Colby as a feminist icon now faced a difficult question. Can we separate the real person from the wrongful behavior? Is she the woman who dared to live authentically, or someone who knew the truth but chose silence? An article in The Cut concluded ironically, "Colby inspired thousands of women to step into the light, but as we see, the light can burn you." Yawa. With the sentence now in place, Danielle will be unable to participate in television, run a business, or perform arts for at least the next decade. However, there is something even deeper than the prison sentence. It is the loss of moral standing. In the eyes of many, she is no longer the one who aided in the crime, but a living testament to the consequences of compromise. No one falls alone, and the downfall of Danielle Colby has dragged not only her career and reputation down, but also an entire ideology of scripted truth. One person falls, and an entire world crumbles with it. 6. The collapse of a reality world. Danielle Colby's downfall is not just the tragedy of an individual or a television show, but also a clear sign of the end of a reality TV cycle. Over the past 2 decades, from singing and cooking competitions to shows about everyday life, reality TV has become a symbol of an era in which the public wanted to see real people, real situations, instead of fictional stories in films. However, the case involving Danielle, Fritz, and Wolf revealed another truth. The real world was largely fabricated, manipulated, and at times no different from a politically charged drama. After the trial, a series of independent investigations were conducted by prestigious magazines like The New Yorker, Vulture, and Wired. The common conclusion from these reports was that from season 6 onward, American Pickers had shifted from being a real field exploration to a scripted show. According to documents gathered from behind-the-scenes contracts, many filming locations were scheduled up to 3 weeks in advance. Artifacts were pre-arranged, and homeowners were paid to play the role of surprised when items were discovered. Danielle Colby, as the logistics coordinator, was the one who contacted and paid these amateur actors. A former crew member revealed, "We had a list of items, the emotional responses required, and scripts for the negotiations. The more natural it seemed, the better, but that naturalness was actually something we created." These revelations shocked the public. Not only did they lose trust in American Pickers, but they also began to doubt the entire reality television industry. Pawn Stars Storage Wars, Deadliest Catch Gold Rush. All of these shows came under scrutiny on social media, accompanied by the hashtag #reality_or_lie. The FCC, after nearly a decade, was forced to hold a public hearing with representatives from reality television production companies. The topic of the hearing was transparency in unscripted content, producers' responsibility to the public. A proposed bill called the REAL Act Real Entertainment Accountability legislation was introduced, requiring all shows labeled as unscripted to disclose the extent of staging the payment for participants and the details that were reenacted. This bill is still under debate, but has received strong responses from both lawmakers and content producers. Meanwhile, streaming platforms had to adjust as well. Netflix removed over 25 reality shows within 3 months of Danielle's scandal and added a content warning. Some scenes may have been recreated for entertainment purposes. YouTube, which hosts thousands of American Pickers videos, also adjusted its algorithm to limit the appearance of videos with the keyword authentic discovery to avoid misleading viewers. The impact of this event did not stop at the media. At antique fairs, which had previously benefited from the boom, in reality TV sales dropped by 35% in the first quarter of 2025. Collectors became more cautious, and customers began to question not only the material value of items, but also the authenticity of the stories behind them. A survey conducted by Collectors Weekly with 1,000 collectors found that 64% of participants believed that reality TV has corrupted the integrity of the antique hobby. On social media, comments that once praised television personalities shifted to deep skepticism. One prominent tweet read, "We once thought they were storytellers, but in reality, they're just directors without the buttons." Notably, this wave did not only affect the big names, but also spread to smaller creators on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, who also produced videos with a mix of fact and fiction. Danielle's case served as a wake-up call. The public had changed. They were no longer willing to accept staged reality as a given. Academically, communication departments at major universities such as Stanford, NYU, and UCLA quickly incorporated Danielle's scandal into their curricula. The subject being taught was, "When Authenticity is Manipulated: Ethical Perspectives in Reality TV." At a seminar at the Columbia Journalism School, one scholar concluded, Colby's scandal is the Watergate of reality television. It forced the industry to re-examine itself, not to eliminate reality TV, but to restore the transparency it was supposed to have. From what seemed like a simple trial, the consequences spread like a storm, affecting viewers, producers, tech platforms, and even the education sector. Danielle Colby's failure was not just due to personal mistakes, but also because she symbolized a system that had long been unchecked. And the most painful part is that it was too late to restore anything. 7. Danielle behind bars. After the sentencing, Danielle Colby was transferred to the Alderson Federal Prison in West Virginia, a medium-security facility known for housing women involved in high-profile cases. Gone were the camera lights, the scripted yet realistic scenes. Danielle was now just inmate number 044DC, beginning her sentence, which was set to last at least 12 years. Sources from inside the prison revealed that she kept to herself, not participating in group activities, staying away from noisy conversations in the dining area or gym. Instead, she spent most of her time in the prison library, reading books, taking notes, and writing in a journal. An anonymous library staff member shared, "Colby often borrowed books on business ethics, behavioral psychology, and autobiographies of social activists. It seems like she is trying to understand what really happened, not just with Frank, but with herself as well." From within the prison, Danielle wrote letters to her daughter, one of which was later partially disclosed to the media by her family. She did not apologize, deny the charges, or offer any excuses. She simply wrote, "Remember, I used to be an inspiration, but also the one who disappointed everyone. Both of these can coexist in the same person. I am not a demon. I am a person, and I was wrong." While incarcerated, she began preparing the manuscript for a memoir tentatively titled Behind the Name Colby. The book is said to address not only the scandal, but also serve as a genuine confession about the process of being caught up in the whirlpool of fame, power, and twisted ethical choices. Beacon Press, a publishing company, expressed interest in the project with the condition that Danielle commit to donating all profits to the Frank Fritz Heritage Fund, a community historical preservation organization founded by Frank's family. Meanwhile, Danielle's legal team filed an appeal to the 8th Circuit Federal Court of Appeals, arguing that the sentence was too harsh and based on circumstantial and emotional evidence from public opinion. However, the chances of winning the appeal seemed slim. A legal expert from the University of Chicago remarked, "Appeals in federal cases are very difficult to win unless there is a serious procedural error. With Colby's case, everything was done by the book. There's no reason to overturn the conviction." Outside the prison, a small group of loyal supporters still believed that Danielle deserved forgiveness. On forums, they shared memories of meeting her at fairs times when she spoke up for women and the underprivileged. They did not deny that she made mistakes, but they argued that her downfall was the result of a system with no way out. One Reddit user wrote, "She didn't kill anyone, but she stayed silent. That was a mistake. However, it's also something worth learning from." The biggest question now is, does Danielle have a second chance? Is there still a place in society for someone who was once loved but then convicted? Showbiz history is full of examples of comebacks, but also of names that vanished forever after scandals. For Colby, that future is still too distant to see. The only thing clear right now is that she is alive, trying to rewrite herself, and hoping that someday people will remember her, not just for her sentence, but for what she learned from it. As the storm of the scandal subsides and the public outrage gradually fades from the headlines, what remains around the name, Danielle Colby, is a legacy full of contradictions. Some call her a betrayer of trust, while others still see her as an icon, but not the symbol of rebellious feminism she once was. Instead, she has become a cautionary tale that fame, when built on silence and evasion, will quickly crumble. The television industry has changed. So has the public. After the case, very few still believe in the coincidence of reality shows. Fans who once idolized American Pickers now rewatch old episodes with a different perspective, no longer feeling excited when discovering an antique, but instead questioning, Is this scene real? Who is behind those perfect negotiations? And most importantly, what did Danielle know, and when? Nevertheless, in the midst of the ruin, some things remain. Many former fans still remember her as someone who once inspired them. A history teacher from Kansas shared on their personal blog, "Danielle Colby got my students, especially the girls interested in American culture through antiques. The case was a shock, but it can't erase the positive influence she once had. It is undeniable that this scandal has opened up much-needed dialogues. The media has begun paying more attention to transparency in content. Producers are now more cautious, and the law is starting to adjust to fit an era where what's real or fake is no longer just a form of entertainment, but a danger to society. And whether intentionally or not, Danielle Colby has become a driving force behind that change. A symbol of dissent, but also a key milestone for the reality TV industry.